So when Molly was a little girl, she's with her dad, her mom in the car, her two sisters, and her cousin. And the most horrible thing happened. Dad was loaded. He was drunk driving. The car accident happens. One of your sisters dies. You lost your little sister and your older cousin. And your mom dies. Basically, the last thing you heard her say is, "Where are my girls?" And yet, Dad never apologized for it.
I will say this, Howard. He never really wavered from his story till his death. He was I did not blame him because he was like, no, because we would talk about it. He was like, I asked your mom to drive. I asked Fran to drive. It was an all-day party. He had been drinking, took a nap, and then left much later. And I guess my mom was like, no, you can drive. And this is 1968. This is 50 years ago. It's before Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Friends don't let friends drive drunk. We have so much more awareness now. This is 1969. Not that I'm trying to bail him out. I take this very seriously. But I did not grow up blaming him. But I understand because he really tried his hardest raising us, and he had to learn to walk again after the car accident with braces on his legs. So I admired him. He tried really hard. And Howard, he felt so guilty. He did. I think he lived with that when he woke up in the hospital and they said, your wife has been killed and your baby daughter, Katie. And he was like, and your Fran, your niece, he was like, no. He sunk into the bed. I think he lived with that his whole life.
Here's the horror of life. This is why I love your book so much. It was shocking to me at the end, and then it all made sense. When you say at the end, now here you were an older woman, your dad was dying of prostate cancer.
Yeah.
You put together that your dad might have been a closeted gay man his whole life. And this is the horror of our world. Because these assholes attacking gay people even today and making gay bad, maybe that's why he was drinking and why he was an alcoholic.
You hit the nail on the head.
How did you figure out your dad was gay? I forget.
It was my last week of Saturday Night Live, my very last show. Such a big deal for me.
Right.
He showed up to my apartment my last week, but he was drunk when he showed up. And I was so bummed because he really hadn't been drinking for a long time. Had sober for a few years, So I was like, what? And, but understand he wasn't telling me he had cancer. He was keeping that secret. So he stopped at a bar at the Grand Central Station and met a college boy, a straight college boy, and invited that college guy back to my apartment, my little apartment in the West Village. And so when I walked in the door after rehearsals, my dad was like, Molly, this is Kevin. He was like drunk and I was like, oh, nice to meet you. And I was so mad because, it kind of makes you feel like you have to control everything. And I was just like, oh, hey, Kevin, how you doing? Like just a total stranger, like a fan.
Yeah, in your apartment.
I kicked him out. I was like, you got to go stay in a hotel. We were very close. Like normally he would have stayed in my apartment. So he went and stayed in a hotel. And then I called my manager, Stephen Levy, and I was like, I'm so mad at my dad, And Stephen lost his dad when he was a kid. And Stephen Levy is gay and out. And Stephen Levy really connected with my dad. They bonded he was like a father figure to him. So Stephen, in that conversation when I complained about my dad, said, you're being too hard on him, Molly. You're being too hard on him. You don't understand. He's given up so much for you girls, so much for you and Mary. And I was like, he kept repeating. I go, what are you saying? Are you saying he's gay? And he was like, I don't want to tell you. He's going to tell you. And I was like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. So understand, I felt like, so much compassion, like kind of the pieces of the story all coming together. Like,
yeah, that's why it's a good
tragic.
book.
Can
you imagine what his life must have been like? I mean, to be a closeted gay man his entire life. He probably drank because he was in so much pain.
He was under stress. He took this job that was in over his head.
Right.
He was probably drinking more because he was stressed out. He's gay. He's keeping that inside. I think he had tried to tell my mom before that. He said, I saw this psychiatrist and the psychiatrist told me I'm a latent homosexual. And she said, oh, that psychiatrist never should have told you that. And so, so of course you're going to drink. Imagine if you couldn't be who you were sexually. It's horrible.
And isn't it amazing when you said to your dad, like you said, are you gay?
I asked him one day at the Four Seasons, we're sitting by the pool. I invited him out to my press junket for Serendipity, and I just was like, we were having a really good time, and I was just like, I'm going to ask him, because Stephen Levy kept telling me, he's going to tell you, but then he wasn't telling me. So I just one day asked him by the pool, have you ever thought you might be gay? And he just said, most definitely. And he was 72. And I was like, oh, I felt
If you'd only said that when he was younger, but it's hard.
Yeah, it's so hard.